Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Bruce, for having me. I've never spoken in front of a group in a university, including my own, so this will be a first time for me. I completely agree with Bruce in terms of you don't know what you don't know. I went to a university in SUNY Binghamton, and there pretty much everybody was, if you went to the business school, you were finance, accounting, or information systems. So I went to finance, and to me, real estate wasn't even an industry. I thought real estate was real estate brokers, basically, because my parents bought a house, and that's the exposure that I saw. It turns out real estate is, multifaceted. I think they did a survey of billionaires around the world. Somebody did a survey, not all billionaires. And something like 27% of net worth is held in real estate. So it's this huge source of wealth and asset class that a lot of people don't really appreciate. And within real estate, there's a very large spectrum of what you can do. You could do transactional stuff like being a real estate broker. You could do investment stuff. You could be a real estate owner. And it has a pretty interesting entrepreneurial requirement, depending if you are in the ownership and development phase. So this is the Beekman. Can you guys hear me okay? The red brick terracotta building in front is actually a 130-year-old landmark. It was built in 1881, and it was built in two sections. This section was built in 1881. This section was built in 1888. And this is the part that we built very, very recently. We completed it this year. We're still completing it. And that's a 50-foot wide site that goes 660 feet in the air in the middle of a block with Nassau Street. You guys have walked down Nassau Street on one side and Theater Alley, which you probably don't think is a street, on the other side. So it posed a number of challenges for us. We bought the site in 2012, and we really didn't know what we were going to do. But much like the entrepreneur that I work for, he had a vision for this building, and he was willing to take risks to get it done. And he was willing to hear a bunch of no's and address those no's on his road to getting a yes. Pretty much everybody, myself included, tried to talk him out of, why would you buy a 130-year-old building? You have no idea what it's going to take to renovate it. You're going to lose your shirt. You're putting a lot of wealth at risk. Why would you do this? And the end result, fortunately, is standing there. It's a 287-room luxury hotel. It has a 51-story condo tower behind it. It's operated by Thompson Hotels. And we have meeting and event space. We have two restaurants, if you guys are foodies. One by Tom Colicchio of Top Chef, another one by Keith McNally, who's New York City restaurant royalty for the last 25 years. He's done a lot of great restaurants, Balthazar's, Pastilla, Shirsh Midi. And there's going to be a cellar lounge there, kind of like a downtown Carlisle room, if you guys are familiar with the Carlisle room uptown. So I've been very fortunate to be a part of this project for the last 5 years. I'll feel even more fortunate when I'm no longer a part of this project and will be 100% complete with construction. But it's really been it's a work of passion. So that's the view from City Hall Park. This is sort of the money shot, right? This is anybody that comes into the space, takes out their phone, goes on Instagram, and posts this picture more or less. The building, when it was built in 1881, had a 150-story glass atrium. All those gallery spaces around, those are floors. And believe it or not, even though this is now a hotel and feels like it's always been a hotel, this building has never been a hotel. It was opened as an office building, modeled after a building in London called Temple Court. It was built in 1881 by a wealthy Irish merchant banker, another entrepreneur that said, you know what, this is going to be my life's work. I'm going to do a building that's going to stand the test of time. And he built this. His name is Gene Kelly, and now there's rooms named after him, and hopefully we're part of retelling his story. Believe it or not, this view didn't exist 20 years ago. In the 1950s, whether for fire code reasons or because it cost too much to heat empty space, they blocked up the atrium. So when you come off the elevators, all you saw was a sheetrock wall. And as you walk through the hallways, all you see are walls in front of you. So basically, this was all walls. Nobody knew the atrium existed. Additionally, this building has been one of New York's best kept secrets in real estate. from the 1990s, it was vacant for about close to 20 years of people trying to figure out what are we going to do with this building. Nobody wanted to touch it because how do you take a building built in 1881 that hasn't had a tenant in 20 years, that's landmarked by the city of New York, and how do you make it suitable for the 21st century? So those were some of the challenges that we had to face. So to take a step back, I started to think, what does real estate have to do with entrepreneurship, right? To me, there's companies that build real estate until you sort of peel back the layers. Most people assume real estate owners are the names you see on buildings, right? Citigroup owns a building, has their name on the building, you assume they're the owner of the building, right? And they built the building. In fact, usually those are just tenants. Real estate owners usually take a disproportionate amount of risk in order to build the buildings. And in order for somebody to justify taking that risk, you need to be able to put a lot of equity on the line, and you need to have like a 5 to 8 year horizon. And that's not something that companies like Citigroup or Merrill Lynch or B of A, whoever it is, that they don't have the tolerance for it. And it's not something that shareholders would support for a very long period of time. So usually there's one individual or a group of individuals that say, you know what, I'm going to do it. I believe in the business plan. I'm willing to put a lot of money on the line. I'm willing to personally guarantee the bank loan. These are people that take a lot of risk. And then you have institutional real estate owners. So once a building's done, you have people that are willing to buy it and as a cash flowing asset, much like a bond. And those people are different developers. Developers are really the ones that are taking on a lot of risk in order to get it achieved. And ultimately, an entrepreneur is about creating simple solutions to complex problems. Uber's concept was if you tap a button, you're going to get a ride, right? They've applied it to 190 countries. It works. Facebook, they keep people connected. Amazon, you could buy anything. For the Beekman, our entrepreneurial pursuit was how do you make this into a beautiful hotel and restore it so that people can really enjoy it for the city of New York. And every entrepreneurial pursuit has a story, as I'm sure you guys know. So what needed to happen in order to make this building become a reality? This is actually one of the best parts about working on this project is before we started construction, the place was mostly demoed, and I got to run around with now my wife and take beautiful engagement pictures of this beautiful landmark space that is going to be pretty iconic, I think, over the next 50 years. So we have this picture now, and the goal is, I think, in a couple of weeks, we're going to do another picture with 2 little kids grabbing our ankles. But this, again, it's things like this that make this really special. So what was involved in having this come together? There were thousands of people that touched this project. We had at least 50 design teams, never mind the people on those teams. We had architectural and design. We had a master architect. We had 2 interior designers. We had all the technical specialists. Believe it or not, in order to make that atrium space compliant, we had to come up with a system to manage the smoke that could accumulate in that space within the fire code for the city of New York. And it had never been done anywhere in the United States. Never been done anywhere in North America. One of our consultants brought over a solution they, by chance, saw when they were traveling in Paris a week before. That was a 2-year process with the FDNY. We had creative consultants. What goes into a hotel, aside from what does it look like? How do you plan the restaurants? How do you plan the art program? How do you plan to restore the space? There was an obligation to restore the space to a certain level. How do you build this building? Believe it or not, this building is actually the tower, the condo tower, is not a new building, according to code. It is an extension of the 1881 building. So we built it as an add-on to this much smaller building next door. And the reason that we did it, if you just go back a couple of slides, is those are all windows right here. And without treating this as one building, you don't have those windows. You only have windows out onto city streets, which would be Nassau Street and Theater Alley. And this building being 50 feet wide by 100 feet deep, you lose that entire 100-foot depth with windows. So it would look like a really tall townhouse with windows out the front, windows out the back. We have 200 to 400 contractors a day doing something. Some are restoring, some are laying tile, some are laying stone. Those are things you have to manage. Where do you put a tower crane when you're building a 600-foot building in the middle of a block? The answer is you put it through your other building. So we actually had in the lobby of the historic building, we had a tower crane sitting through it. And our hoists were inside, one of the hoists was inside the new building, and the other hoist was inside another light well in the building. And it's dealing with those sorts of challenges. And I would say, as you guys, as future entrepreneurs, and what I learned is that keep asking the same question of people that are supposed to know the answer. And when they tell you the answer that doesn't make sense or that doesn't provide the solution you're looking for, keep asking for it. You're not opinion shopping. You're eventually going to force somebody to approach a problem a different way, right? That's sort of, when you're not informed, you know where you want to get to. And most people, they tend to go down the path they went before. So an architect, when you ask them how big do I need a guest room to be, they're going to take out the last hotel they did of this caliber, and they're going to say, here's what you need, here's how you plan it. And you really need to challenge people. Because you don't know what you don't know, you have to just keep pushing and asking the questions in order to get the answers that you need. And then on top of this, when you tell somebody a vision of, hey, I want to restore this building from 1880s and build a condo tower in the financial district, which has until recently not been a good residential market, you have a lot of people telling you that's really good. How are you going to pay for that? So, this project for construction, had included multiple groups of lenders initially to buy it, 5 groups of lenders to capitalize the construction, several institutional equity partners, including hedge funds. We needed a historic tax credit investor that for 2 years, that whole industry went away. And we needed to manage that whole process and make sure that we're always communicating with appropriate stakeholders and that people are getting what they signed up for. You never want to disappoint your investors when you're putting this much on the line. And just in terms of some of the agencies involved, and these agencies generally don't particularly care to talk to each other. You have New York City Department of Buildings, you have Fire Department, you have the MTA, because luckily or not luckily, there's a subway tunnel running within close proximity of us. You have the Department of Transportation, you have to close streets in order to do things. You have the New York City Parks Department, if you have to move a tree. Believe it or not, that's one of the hardest things you'll ever do in construction is move a tree. This building is landmarked from the outside, so you have landmarks involvement. And because we had historic tax credits, we had to restore the inside, which was subject to federal and state oversight. You have New York State Attorney General for selling condos. That's just a few of them. So that's, those were some of the challenges. And ultimately, what you really need to do is just sort of put your head down and grind through it. Keep working problems. Eventually, they'll yield a solution. That makes sense. It may take more time. It may take more money. It may require you to change your plans, back up, and go around the street. But ultimately, if there's anything I learned 8 years at my company working for an entrepreneur is that, just put your head down, grind it through. You'll find the solution that you need. So I'll show you guys some before and after pictures, so you kind of get a sense of what it looked like and what it is now. So this was when you came in. This was the lobby space. This was the first floor, so you basically had a walkway here, and then you went to elevators, and there was sheetrock over it, so you couldn't tell what it was. You would have, you might have seen this in the Fulton subway station. You have stores on the inside. That's what it was. By the time we bought it, because it went through 3 or 4 cycles of developers that bought it, couldn't develop it, sold it, got into trouble. 2008 happened, 2001 happened. Luckily, we made it through this cycle. This is what it looked like. And this is what the bar living room looks like now. It's really, really a spectacular space. If you guys can afford are old enough and can afford a $17 cocktail, I would highly recommend it. The beers are like $13. These are the gallery spaces as you walk around. So basically, and it's still today, you could walk up and don't lean too hard, but you can lean over and look down. And this was the condition that it was in because it went through a couple of failed restoration attempts. And this is what it looks like now. One of the challenges was how do you manage smoke in the space? So you kind of can't see it, but where the glass corners are, you have curtains that come down, and then there's fans on top to pull out all the smoke. So that's where, and all those are pretty much guest rooms. Historically, those were office suites. This is what a regular floor looked like looking out the window. And this is now a guest room. And again, this is just interior space. It was fully demoed. This is a bathroom. This is the lobby where you come in. So that's the secondary light wall. This is actually an interior light wall that was added to the second building. And that's where we had our tower crane going 600 feet, 750 feet because it needs to have that. It needs to have the mast. We had that sitting there up until roughly 3 months before we opened the space. So once we took it out, we chopped out the concrete that it was sitting on, and we moved it out. And this is the shot looking down. So, and it's really cool. I encourage you guys to come take a look. There's, you know, a lot of original details were restored. You have like these ornate dragons that were used to support the gallery spaces on the underside that were steel. You just can't build like this anymore. Nobody could ever afford it. This is Tom Colicchio's restaurant, Fowler and Wells. And this is a residential condo unit up on the 44th floor. So it's been involved with this project for 4 years. It's really been an amazing passion of mine. You will learn once you get into the workforce, not everybody loves what they do. And I will say that I am generally one of the people that love what I do. And every morning I'm like, all right, it's Monday. But that's primarily because over the weekends, my 2 kids run me exhausted. But it's really, if real estate is something you're interested in, I would really, I don't know if PACE has a real estate program. Binghamton did not. So I was totally oblivious to it until I fell into it by chance in 2008. And I couldn't imagine working in any other industry because you do combine that corporate structure, the finance, with an entrepreneurial zeal. You know, you're working for an individual. So when decisions need to be made, I go and I like, what are we doing here? What are we going to do? And you really get to shape the city that you live in, which I think is, you know, very exciting. It's tangible. And you know, in recognition of some of our efforts, we've won a number of awards and been included in a lot of like really amazing positive press, in part because of the building, in part because of our highly paid PR agents. We won the Urban Land Institute's New York Development Excellence in Hotel Development. That's kind of like the academies. New York Landmarks Conservation Award, Preservation League of New York State Award. We won an engineering award because of the systems that we had to put in place in order to make a building that was built in 1881, you know, state of the art for, you know, 2017. We won a residential design award. The Victorian Society gave us an award. This is actually the cover of March's Travel and Leisure. So we not only made the IT list, but we made the cover. Ford, Condé Nast, Interior Design. You know, we've had a lot of tremendous success, and I consider myself very fortunate that I've been able to be a part of this project relatively early in my career. So that's it. Any questions?
One more award, please. Yeah, we'll take a picture. We have an award for Stan as well, and our judges are Solid Diamond University award. Thanks, Stan. That was great. Thank you. Thanks, Rod. And